anybody who would like any questions on the material that we did. I did it rapidly, intentionally. I think I gave it over as crisply and clearly as I could. It's, as I mentioned, it is known as a harder sugya, and we did not go into all the possible depths and ramifications. But if you got that, but if anybody would like me to work anything out, any words to translate, anything that I should go over? No. So then we're Yud Beis Amud Beis, over halfway down the page, the new Mishnah. Masnisin. We read, Haraga Ba'osa Ha'ir, okay? On with the saga of our hapless Seach. You know, he'd be so much better if he would have just checked that stupid axe handle. Tell you that. Harag Ba'osa Ha'ir. If the what's the scenario? He's a bit of a klutz, this guy. Not the most intelligent fellow, one gets the impression. He leaves plugs in front of his video and everything, you know, it's completely good. And then he's already in the ear miklat, right? So like he's already murdered by accident once. You'd think that, you know, he'd get the plug out of the way altogether, but no. You'd think that he would finally realize, you know, this is, you know, you're careful with human lives, but no, harag ba'osair. He kills a second time in the same city now, but he can't leave. Remember, shamtia kfuraso. He's there until the Kohen Gadol dies, if there is a Kohen Gadol. So now what's he supposed to do? How does he flee to the city of refuge if he's already in a city of refuge? The Mishnah tells us, go mishchuna l'shchuna. Every city apparently is divided into sub-districts, and he simply goes from one to the other, which is to his detriment. Because before, he had the whole lay of the land, he had the entire city, plus its tchum, the outside boundaries to wander around in. Now he's really confined. If he leaves one shchuna, one neighborhood, and goes to the other, he's fair game for the Gol Adam. The Gol Adam can now enter the greater city of refuge and kill him if he leaves the shchuna, the neighborhood. Uven Levi, if a Levi killed someone in his city, and remember, the Levi city doubles as an Ir Miklat. So he may be there because he killed before, but it also just may be that he's there, and I think the Pasuk shot of the Mishnah is he's there because he lives there. Because they're given 48 cities where they live, the 6 primary Ari Miklat plus the 42 Ari Levim. So if he kills somebody within a city, we learn in the Mishnah, Gola Me'ir Le'ir, he is permitted to leave that city. And here this is why it's clear that he was not previously a murderer. He's somebody who was living there because simply he was a Levi. And because he's not stuck there until the death of the Kohen Gadol, he then is permitted and actually must go from one city to the next. We understand, I mean, this is one of those sugyas where we're juggling different obligations, imperatives of the Torah. There is an imperative that Galus, going to the city of refuge, involves some form of movement, of going. So as we learned the famous Gemara, that a place that one person wants to go, we conduct him, right? So this guy wasn't careful, he's conducted there, but as a metaphor for so many things, clearly there's a movement that's necessary. To go into exile, it involves some kind of physical upheaval. It's similar to what, let's say, Yosef Tzaddik does when he moves all the populations around, shifting the populations, knowing that his own family is going to have to come down. They're going to be strangers in a strange land. It's appropriate that everybody should be a stranger in a strange land. Nobody really likes to move. It's unsettling, and that's part of the process. That's part of the punishment and the kapara. The Gemara brings a brisa.
Wait, Rabbi, can you do the about Misha? You said Cohen, Misha Cohen. What does that mean again? Like the first, the second line of Misha.
Oh, mishchuna l'shchuna, from neighborhood to neighborhood, or from district to district. A shchuna is a neighborhood. It's also the same root of the word shchina, because Shechina is the manifestation of Hashem's presence that dwells here. So Lishkon is a dwelling, the same root of the word Mishkan. That's the home of Hashem, where Hashem dwells, as it were, in the tabernacle. Tana Rabbanan, the Brisa kicks off the Gemara. That happens a lot. Gemaras will sometimes introduce a Brisa that takes up similar themes as the Mishnah, as is the case here. We have a pasuk from Shmos, V'samti lecha makom. Hashem speaks and says, I'll set for you a place where you're going to flee to. And now that's the pasuk. So now the Brisa picks up and says, V'samti lecha b'chayecha. What does it mean, I'll place for you? I'll place for you in your lifetime. That's the first point we're going to learn from this verse. Moshe, even in your lifetime, I'm going to establish at least some of the Ari Miklat. We discussed this, Moshe, if you remember, at the very beginning of the second chapter some months ago when we picked this up. And I told you that there were initially 3 Me'ever LeYarden, 3 that were across from the Jordan. We had our famous drawing on the whiteboard that stayed up for some weeks, where you had, if you remember, the 3 across in the region of the Golan Heights and the country of Jordan today. You had in the far north, you had Golan. Golan in the north in Bashan, you had Ramot Gilad, and then you had Betzer in Reuven. So when he says we're going to darshan this verse, V'samti lecha b'chayecha, Moshe, you're going to get a chance to have a little bit of this mitzvah yourself, that he would have an opportunity, and that was something that it's in Parshas V'eschanan, and Moshe begs for it. If I can't have the full mitzvah, give me a piece of a mitzvah, since mitzvahs give dimension to our life. If I can't have all of it, at least I want some of it. It's that idea too. Sorry, it's very rich. That idea too is also is a refutation of the all or nothing approach. Well, if I'm not totally from, what's the point of trying anything? Well, Moshe was willing to settle for 3 out of 6, even though until you get the full 6, none of them are functional. Okay, I'll still take what I can get, whatever I can do. Makom, the pasuk says a place. Okay, what does that indicate? That means a new drasha, minkomcha. That is, we understand that is from your place. So that's going to be where you live. And Moshe, this is important too. The Mefarshim filled this in. Rashi tells us this, that minkomcha means you as a Levi, as a Levi. It's going to be from your place, and this is the source of the idea that all of the Ari Miklat have a double function of being Ari Levim, cities of Levim as well.
Wait, what does that mean again? That word?
It means mimkomcha, which means it's going to be from your place. What kind of place is your place? You know, your tribal place. Who's your tribe? Levi. And that's where we get this concept that the Levim, the cities of Levim, also doubled as Ari Miklat. Welcome, Ben. We start promptly on this. So if you miss the beginning, you might not be totally up on it, but that's fine. We're on the bottom of Yud Beis Amud Beis in the Gemara, before the last Mishnah. The next part of the pasuk that we're going to darshan, each one of these ideas yields a new idea, new halacha. Asher Yanu Shama, the verse says, you're going to flee there. Melamed Shayu Yisrael Maglin Bamidbar. You're going to flee there in the present tense. Interesting idea. This teaches that the Jews were exiled, the Rotzchim B'Shogeg, the guys who killed inadvertently, even while they were in the Midbar for the 40 years. There was a concept of an Ir Miklat, and they had to flee to where did they flee to? And we learn that immediately, and that's the next question in the Brisa. It says, Lehechan Maglin, well, where would they go? They weren't in Eretz Yisrael, there were no formal Ari Miklat, so what could they do? So they said, very straightforward, Lemachne Levia. And it follows so logically, right? Just like the Ari Levim, the cities of the Levites, would be Ari Miklat in the desert, in the wilderness. So the Machne of the camp of the Levim would also serve the function of the Ir Miklat. Do you have a mental picture of how the Jews were arrayed in the camp in the wilderness?
No.
You had the Mishkan in the center. It was the very, very center Right, that was the holy place. That was with the Mishkan. But on the next concentric circle out, you had the camp of the Levim, and then outward you had the other camps. You had the four, the three in the front, three in the south. Right, everybody arrayed in their perfect order. So the Ir Miklat was actually this more in the center, if there was such a need. The Brisa doesn't elaborate on this, but you kind of wonder about this. Really, they were rotzchim in the midbar, and that kind of that period with all the flaws. We're learning the parshas these days, all the terrible mess ups of the Jews in the desert. But with the exception of those mess ups, all of which were instigated by the Erev Rav, it's interesting. The people are at a very high level. Kimera shamayim ala aretz. It was a heavenly kind of existence. And they were sitting and learning Torah all day, so it's hard to imagine that there were too many rotzchim. But theoretically, there could have been, is what this Bryce is teaching us. Mikan Amru, from here, from this pasuk, they said, as Chazal say, Ben Levi Shaharag Gola Mipelech Lepelech. If they learn a new idea, this is sort of from our Mishnah, but it's actually a more applied, a more specific idea, a new idea. If somebody, a Ben Levi, somebody from the tribe of Levi, who killed inadvertently, he's exiled from his city, right? Megolim Pelech LePelech. Pelech is a city, to a different city. The Imgala, the Pilko Kolto. But if he went to Gullus within his own city, Lepilko, to his own city where he already was, well, then he's okay. He could do that. That was an option that he had open to him. He could go from one place to another, or he could go within his own home city and go from one district to another district. The advantage, there's an advantage on either side. If he leaves the city altogether, goes to a new place, the advantage is he has the run of the entire new city. That's nice. If he stays in his city, he loses that advantage because now he can't leave that district. He's stuck there, so he doesn't have too much elbow room. And I guess if he's Yossi Goldstone, he can't go for long jogs around the block. But the advantage, of course, is he's not really all that far from home, so he has that apparent leeway, that prerogative to be able to do that.
We're talking about a Levi, right?
That's all a Levi. Just a Levi has that prerogative, and that's derived from that. That pasuk, in other words, yields several halachas, all of which this Bryce just elucidated. The Bryce is over now.
Sorry,
remember our Mishnah. Yeah.
What was Milmad?
Milmad, we learn.
Okay, thank you.
We said the Bryce said that a Levi is exiled within his own city, and he could do that. The Mishnah said that a Jew, a regular Yisrael, can also, right? If he kills a second time, he goes to another district too. And we're asking on both points about the regular Yisrael and a Levi. How can they do that? What's the source for that? That's the next question. Amar Rav Acha Bered Rav Ika. Mikra. What's the verse that teaches us this idea? And this is the verse. It's a pasuk in Bamidbar also. Ki ve'ir miklato yeshev. Because in the city of his refuge, he'll dwell. You get it? You hear the nuance? It's a city of his refuge, meaning it's his. He already lives there. We know he's got to go to some kind of formal process of exile. Good, so let him flee. And he goes away. But it's his. So that's that from that verse, it's implied strongly that he can actually go from one neighborhood to another. Here, and that's his answer. He's the last three words before the Mishnah. Ir shekalatatu kvar, a city that's already given him some kind of refuge, could then in a second instance also give him a new refuge in a different part of town. I think it was a pretty easy Mishnah and Gemara, but we're good. Okay, the last Mishnah on the page, 4 lines from the bottom. Masnisin. Kayod Sebo, some of the Mefarshim don't like that phrase because it's not totally clear what Kayod Sebo means on a similar note, but In fact, this doesn't seem similar to the previous discussion at all. So what are you talking about? People do that. I'm really alert to people's speaking quirks when they lecture and so on. Often you'll hear lecturers say again, and then they'll say an idea that they never said before. So you think, what was the again part, sir? Anyway, Kyotsebo, others want to connect that the idea may be that just like in the previous discussion, we see that there are restraints on the killers, and all these restraints are meant to produce some kind of humility, right? All this is meant to, there's a punishment at the end of the day, right? And that's supposed to yield some humility. Fine. Rotzeach shegala le'ir miklato. Killer is exiled to a city of refuge. V'ratzu anshe ha'ir lechabdo. Strangest of phenomenon. The people of that city want to give him a banquet. Want to give him some kind of honor. Lechabdo, kavod. They want to give him some kavod. Kind of weird, but truth is stranger than fiction. It could happen, right? We want to make you, the lodge president of the year. I don't know. Yomer lehem rotzeach. So this is actually halacha. He's obligated. The rotzeach must inform them. He says, I'm sorry, Yomer lehem. He says to them, rotzeach ani. I'm a killer. You know that? You have to let them know. You sure you want to honor me? Because I'm not the most, upstanding.
It's like the resident sex offender
is a problem.
in America.
What?
It's like a resident sex offender in America. They have to put on
right. Something along those lines, right? You really want to honor me? Is that really appropriate? He says, I'm not sure I really deserve it. Is the point? It comes up in halacha as well. Right? Person's supposed to be upright and say it like it is. Amrulo. So if they could say back to him, Avo pichen. Right? Even so, we want to honor you. Yikabel mehen. You got fair warning. You still want to honor me? Great. I like a banquet dinner. Wouldn't mind having my picture on everybody's placeholder. The point here is that he could protest once. He doesn't have to protest again. Well, we get this idea from the pasuk in Dvarim. It says, Zed dvar harotzeach, and this is the word of the rotzeach, right? The word means this is the word that he has to say, right? It's an oral admission, some kind of a confession on his part that he did this. And once he gives his word, one word is enough, and he doesn't have to give another word. You know how to say word in Yiddish? Vort. So often somebody says, I've got a vort on Parsha. But I find a lot of the time those vorts on Parsha are much more than just one word. Those people should learn from our Mishnah. That's just me editorializing here. And he can accept the honor. The Mishnah goes on. We have a minute. We'll finish the Mishnah. Mylin, or on the next page. Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Ooh, we're so close to making a siyum on the second chapter. Mylin hayu schar lelevim. This is one opinion, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. They would pay rent to the Levim. I mean, the cities belong to Levim. So you guys are temporarily staying there. You got to pay, right? The Rotzeach has to pay rent for their dwelling. They can't just go there and expect a free ride. Diva Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Meir Omer. Lo ayu ma'alin lehen schar. Nope. It's a paid deal. It's kind of like going into quarantine in this country. Bidud, right? You go into one of these miloniot. They go to these hotels and expenses are covered. Kind of a nice deal unless you get to a lousy hotel and then you have no choice. So we'll talk about, the Gemara is going to immediately open up tomorrow night, and we'll talk about why Rabbi Yehuda holds you do pay, Rabbi Meir says you don't have to pay. Another machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. V'chozer l'srara shahayava. If, let's say, the Rotzeach eventually goes free, the Kohen Gadol dies, he goes back to his original hometown, and these words mean v'chozer l'srara, the Rotzeach can actually go back to a position of importance, of authority, srara, like a sar. Sar is a minister. so he can go back into his, a high appointment that he previously had, shahayaba, that he was in previously before the murder. He can reclaim his job, in other words, which may involve getting some honor. Tiva Rabbi Meir says that. Rabbi Meir, in both of these arguments, seems to have an opinion that's more favorable to the Rotzeach. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, you blew it. You murdered, and you don't deserve the former position of importance. And the Gemara is going to go into this idea as well. Questions? Okay, perhaps I don't know, and I won't rush. I emphasize quality over quantity. We may finish tomorrow night, and if not, we'll finish on Sunday. I'm finish the chapter, but I have every intention of plowing on into the third chapter. Hashem should give us time and patience and chazer. I do hope. I don't know the level of seriousness with which you're taking this. I encourage you to go over this, listen to these recordings if you need to several times, and get this. Don't just make this casual learning, but really, this is a great Gemara to get early on. So many vital ideas, and feel great that you're learning this. Good.
Rabbi, will the rabbi still make us a cake?
That'd be great, and I'll eat it for you. I'll just sit here and eat it, and I'll tell you what it tastes like.
Rabbi, I'm here in Israel. I can come pick it up.
Oh, that's true. How are we going to get it to Edmonton and to Miami and to Ben? Where are you? Ben Richmond, you there?
He's in New York.
I'm in New York.
Yeah, New York. That's what I thought. Okay, and Toronto. Okay, great. They really have to work on it. It's a Chaim. I thought you guys were all over the technology. There must be some mechanism by which I can just go like this.
On what? What do you mean?
No, I'm saying something where I could just put a piece of my wife's cake through the screen and you get it.
Not yet. Soon.
Okay, not yet. We'll develop the technology. Have a very fine morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
Are you interested in going into like other sources outside of just the Gemara text alone?
I'm open to it. I go by requests. I thought that there was let's say I think Moshe Felix was the real catalyst to getting this thing going, even though you were as well, Nathan. But Moshe I think is motivated to get a solid learning, but finish the Gemara.
Okay,
and
so
this is like the balancing act that we did. What would you like? What would be nice for you? Because I'm open to possible alternates.
well, if you don't want to deviate from what we're doing currently, I'd be open to, if you find something interesting.
Oh, great! I love doing
through,
that.
just
yeah, amazing. And I keep telling you, there's all this great stuff. Yeah, well, if you notice in the first classes, I was kind of doing that. I was introducing a bunch of things. So if you want to do that, Blinet, or maybe I will pepper it here and there with some juicy sugyas, some of the Rishonim, Achronim.
Yeah, even if you don't go into it during the Shiur, you could just recommend some, and we could look into it on our own time.
Fantastic. Do you have access to what's called the Mesivta? I don't have it here. I often do.
I could probably get access to it. Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
What is that?
It's the Mesivta is what now. It's widely used. It's wonderful. It has a bunch of features, including in the back is some of the best stuff. They have a committee of Talmidei Chachamim who collate everybody. They sift through the major Rishonim, Achronim in every capacity on the Gemara, and they give you super commentary on Rashi and super commentary on Tosfos, and then there's a whole section. Really what Nathan's referring to of like the juicy sugyas that come out of each discussion in the Gemara. And I've been citing it periodically, especially not the last couple nights, but before then I was going into it somewhat. And there's a whole section on the Gadata as well. So yeah, great. I'm game.
I'll have to pick up a copy.
Yeah, great. All right. Have a great night, wherever, or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.